Let's talk some Oregon Ducks. We got some big news with Junior Adams, their former wide receiver coach, bolting for the Dallas Cowboys. The Ducks made a hire over the night, and it's Syracuse wide receiver coach Ross Douglas. He's a 30-year-old hot name in coaching circles. Now he's on the big stage with the Ducks, and I got Justin Hopkins on this video. We're going to talk about the recruiting implications for Oregon with this new wide receiver hire. But before we get going, Duck fans, do me a favor, hit subscribe to the On3 Recruits channel. We're trying to grow this page, and we want you to be a part of it. All right, let's bring in Justin Hopkins from Scoop Ducks. Justin, glad you're warm. Big hire last night, Ross Douglas. First of all, just what are your thoughts on the move from a recruiting perspective?
Yeah, I mean, if we're looking at Dan Lanning and his coaching tree or hires, if you will, so far, this fits the mold, right? Young guy, up and coming, already has the pedigree. If you look at his timeline of coaching, it's literally just kind of gone like this already, just, only 6 or 7 years in the industry. And now you're going to work for Dan Lanning and the Ducks. And, you have to look at Syracuse, and they were a pass-happy team last year, #1 passing offense in the country. I think you look at that, you bring it over to Oregon, this young guy and this guy that says, hey, look, I can help with the passing attack, maybe open up the downfield a little bit more, bring in some things that I've learned along the way under Bill Belichick and others. So got to love that. Got to think for recruiting. Obviously, this guy's younger, should be able to recruit relatively well. Best of all, has played all over, right? Played at Michigan, played at Rutgers, been in New England, been at Syracuse. So now this guy comes out to Oregon and says, hey, why don't you come play for the Ducks and help us win a national championship?
Yeah, on paper, it looks like a really exciting hire, especially from a recruiting perspective. So we'll just have to wait and see. But I think this offseason we'll get a good idea of what he can do. So let's move on. Over the weekend, there's some big news. Wide receiver Boobie Feaster has reclassified. He was the #1 recruit in the Lone Star State and On3 Industries #4 prospect in the 2027 class. He's now moved up to 2026. We'll see where he settles in the rankings. But last month, Feaster talked with On3 about the program's high in his recruitment. First team out of his mouth was Oregon. He said, I can say Oregon for sure. LSU, Texas, Texas A&M, USC, Tennessee, those are the ones that are big. So, Justin, do you consider Oregon the front runner here?
Yeah, I don't know if I would be so bold to say front runner. I would certainly say top 2, no worse than top 3, and that's just being a worst case scenario. I do think Oregon has a really strong in here, and I know, obviously you've got a wide receiver coaching change, but the real link in this chain is Rashad Samples, his ties to Texas, the fact that he's, been able to develop all these relationships and he remains at Oregon. So I know he'll very much be a part in the passing attack with Oregon as well, even though he's the running backs coach at Oregon. I think that only helps. I think Oregon has done a tremendous job identifying some of these guys. We see a new trend now, right? We're seeing a lot of these guys reclassify and move up a year. Mark Bowman is another one that recently did it, 4-star tight end out of Mater Dei. Another guy that Oregon is one of the top two or top teams for. So I think Oregon's well aware of some of these guys that are looking to reclassify, as in Boobie Feaster, and does a really good job getting on their radar early, just in case that move happens and they can move up that timeline.
Yeah. So let's talk more about the wide receiver board. Obviously, Chris Henry Jr., the #1 wide receiver in the 2026 class, he's a main target for the Ducks. But will his recruitment be impacted by the Ross Douglas hire? Now, I don't mean right away. It's way too early to know. But how do you think it will be impacted?
Yeah, I don't think it makes much of an impact. That's no discredit to Junior Adams, who's obviously one of the best as the wide receiver position as far as coaches go. I think all of us, including myself, expect Chris Henry Jr. to take this thing the whole way, right? He's going to take some visits to Oregon, probably visit some other schools. I know USC is kind of jumping in the mix. So, if that's the case, and we assume, that he'll get back out to Eugene at some point, kind of helps Oregon, if you will. It gives them another coach and another excuse and a new reason. Hey, Chris, come pay us another visit. We need to introduce you to Coach Douglas. So, again, we've got, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 months, whatever we've got here with Chris Henry Jr. Got to trust that Coach Douglas will build a relationship with him along the way. And one thing that Oregon does incredibly well, and I know this is popular in recruiting, but Oregon utilizes kind of that team recruiting practice. So it was never just Junior Adams. There's 3, 4, 5 coaches involved. So just in case somebody does move on, there's still a relationship with that prospect.
Yeah. So who do you consider to be the priority names that Duck fans need to know about at the wide receiver position after we move past Chris Henry Jr.'s name?
Yeah, I kind of think Oregon's only going to take 2 to 3 receivers in this class, so their board's not especially big, right? And so I'm going to immediately look at Caden Dixon-Wyatt, Chris Henry's teammate at Mater Dei, recently visited Oregon as well, and I would say Oregon, again, is probably no worse than top 2 or top 3 for Caden Dixon-Wyatt. So that's a name that immediately comes to mind. With Boobie Feaster moving up, that's another one that we're talking about, Oregon being in that top range for. I like Calvin Russell and Jalen Lott a lot as well. I think those are 2 guys that have mentioned Oregon early. I believe both have visited Oregon at various times in the past. So coming out of this, slow February into a busy spring with visits, I would keep eyes on those 2 guys right there. And again, I will say this, at least in closing, Oregon also did sign Gatlin Bear 2 cycles ago and went on his mission. So Gatlin Bear comes back, basically would count, quote unquote, as a 2026 recruit. So Oregon will have him joining the team, and he's a former 5-star. So again, I think they only need 2 or 3 guys because you start looking at how this roster takes shape.
Yeah, they've done a phenomenal job recruiting the position. Shout out to Junior Adams for the groundwork that he's laid. Now Ross Douglas comes in and he gets to build on that. Duck fans, talk to Justin and I. How are you guys feeling about this new wide receiver coach, and what do you think it's going to do on the recruiting trail? Talk to us. Comment section below.